Hey, what's going on, guys? I got a special guest here today. We have Gregg Majewski. He's a leader in the restaurant world. You may know him for his time at Jimmy John's, where he served as CFO, COO, and eventually CEO. He's also started Craveworthy Brands, where he helps new franchisors have great restaurant success. Gregg, I'm so happy to have you on the hashtag Clocked In podcast. I know there's going to be a ton of value today. So let's start off. What's a big mistake you've made? Because you've had so much success.
I mean, you make mistakes every day, and that's one of the biggest things that it took me a long time to learn. It's okay to fail. And so, I mean, biggest failure I ever had was I opened up a restaurant after I left Jimmy John's, and I put my blood, sweat, and tears into this business. And food was great. Everything was great about it, except the location sucked. And instead of giving up on it, like most you should, because it was my baby, I went ahead and I pumped $100,000 to $200,000 a year into this thing for about 15 years.
Wow.
And I did it because it was so important to me emotionally that I didn't want to let something that I created down. And I'm like, well, the area is going to build up. This is going to happen. Myers will actually develop and, put their facility in where I would have had a gold mine. And it just never came. And I kept believing everything and just praying that it was going to work. But I mean, I threw away money after money after money because my ego got in the way that I couldn't let something go that was so dear to my heart. So during that time and that lesson that I finally learned was you got to fail. It's okay. It's okay to walk away. Not every business, not every job, not every thing you're going to do, every relationship is going to be a home run and a success. You got to know when you can move on and not learn something from it. And
Yes.
the lesson that I learned from that was that, everything that a PE group would tell you, cut your losses faster, move on to the next thing and go ahead and what you're doing, just go ahead and do it somewhere else and do it again. And as you
Yes.
do that more and more, you become more and more successful. But it was a costly lesson for me.
And I can only imagine because you had such great success at Jimmy John's and you start going from 33 to over 300 units, you start to realize I'm indestructible. I can do anything. And what was your mindset at that time? Because I know you went from University of Kentucky and you started this journey of, hey, I might go accounting, and then you get the call from Jimmy. Explain to the audience that.
I mean, to think everyone when they go through school think you're going to go take your job out of school and you're going to work your way up. And I was no different. I worked, after nearly flunking out and having to pay for school and all this other stuff. And once I finally got my head on, I had an opportunity to take a job that every CPA student wanted. And all set was good, going to go. And out of the blue, someone by the name of Jimmy John's called me. I had no idea what Jimmy was. I had no idea what Jimmy John's was. And he somehow got my resume and offered me an internship. And Arthur Anderson at the time told me to take a semester off. I didn't need to start. And I'm like, okay, great. I'm going to take this internship and see. And after a couple of weeks, him and I met and he offered me a full-time job and told me he was going to change my life. And I looked at him and said, well, it's not as good as what I'm going to make over here. And he said, I'll match it. And I'm like, okay, let's do it. And, but I took a huge, huge gamble to take a restaurant or a guy that I had no idea about and believed in the vision that he was setting forth for us and jumped in full force. And that decision has changed my life to this day. It was the best decision I've ever made as in my business career, that I gambled on an unknown brand to me, an unknown guy that was struggling at the time to make it himself, and, went all in because I saw a career path that I could eventually run that company because he had nothing. So I gambled on myself and him and it worked.
That's incredible. And you start to realize how much like curiosity really opens the door because there's so many people who would have been like, go with the safe path, go with this, go with that. But you start to realize like sometimes those big breaks come from risk, being open to risk sometimes.
So, I mean, if you talk to any entrepreneur out there, if they don't take the risk, they don't get to the next level. And you
Yeah.
can look at Elon Musk, you can look at anyone. The big gambles is what makes you or break you, and that's no different than the gamble that I took. I knew I was good and I knew what I was capable of. And regardless, it was a risk for me that set me up for the rest of my life. And to this day, it still pays the fact that I took that risk. But
Yeah.
if you're not going to gamble on yourself, then you really should be working for someone else. And I know that's hard for people to hear and hard for that communication. But if you want to make your lives better and if you want to get to that next level, you always got to bet on you.
Ah,
Don't take the safe bet. Don't sit there and wait. Take the gamble on yourself because if you believe in yourself, you should be able to move up every rank of the way. So many people
abs-
are just so comfortable living with that paycheck and they're making a ton of money. They don't want to jeopardize it. They don't want to
yeah.
risk. And to
Yeah.
advance, you got
And
to risk.
but I think the cool thing about what your story is that you took a risk, but it wasn't, hey, I'm about to start my own sandwich shop. You know what I mean? You were took a risk with someone who was already doing it as well. So that there's a dynamic to that as well, because a lot of people, and I'm just sharing this for the audience, like a lot of people think I have to go start my own business to be an owner. And that's not always the case.
No, I mean, you've got to gamble with anything. It's do you take the promotion? Do you move jobs and take a startup position with a new company because you have a career path to move forward? It doesn't matter what the risk is. You don't always, to be successful, it doesn't mean you have to go and start your own business, but being successful is continuing to move yourself up. And everyone's goal in life is to create generational wealth for yourself. And anyone who says that that's not their goal for going to work every day and that you just coming back and forth, you don't want to live pay for check to paycheck. You want to set yourself up so you can have the life you always dreamed about. Boats, cars, vacations, whatever it is that makes you happy, you work for those things. Your family, making sure your kids can go to college, all of that. Those are the things you work for. And if you don't gamble on yourself, you're never going to get to that next level to be able to give them more and do more. And at a
Yeah.
certain point in people's lives, they just get comfortable. And that's
Yes.
when you see the true leaders or the people that are those entrepreneurial spirits in companies, starting their own businesses and all that. The people that are always willing to take the risk tend to be the ones that always get the reward.
Yes, 100%. And you see that so often where there's comfort that's causing you, like you don't enjoy the comfort and you want to get away from that, which is challenging, or there's so much discomfort that you want to run away from that. So it's like running towards pleasure or running away from pain. And a lot of people wait for the pain to be so bad that they need to run away. But the real incredible people are the one who find the opportunities where it's, hey, I'm not that happy where I'm at. It may be comfortable, but I need to make that change today. And I need to force some sort of change to occur. So
Right.
when you
What
got to Jimmy John's, what allowed you to like move up the ranks? Because everyone's sitting there going, like, how old were you at this time? Was it 22, 23?
21.
20, like
21. I just when I took the job, I was 21 and I turned 22 shortly after. But I mean, yeah, I was 22 years old. I was a stupid brat kid that thought he could do anything.
yeah. And
And what
most people at
and
22 aren't even capable of focusing on something for that long.
Yeah, and I mean, I was lucky enough in a way that I had to survive for the last 4 years. And
Yes.
again, I screwed up. And so I knew that I had to prove myself and that I had to work and that I had the work ethic to sort of do the things that I needed. And work to me, if I'm doing something that's fun, and again, I have only done things that I find fun.
Yes.
It's not work. So I
Yeah.
don't feel that, hey, outworking somebody is hard because I'm enjoying what I'm doing all the time. That I look up at the clock and realize, oh my God, it's been a 15-hour day or a 16-hour day. Not a big deal. I go home and I do it again, and I'm excited to get up every morning. Where most people, when they wake up on a Monday morning, they're like, oh, it's Monday. I wake up and go, let's go. It's Monday, it's so much fun and I'm ready to go. I can't wait to walk in on Monday morning because
And
it's fun.
yeah, and I think that comes down to, for the audience, realizing what you associate is work, right? So a lot of us have work as like it's these long hours, long commute, not fun, et cetera, et cetera. But you hear Greg, who's someone who's very successful, has the complete opposite of what he views work as. And a lot of the entrepreneurs I've interviewed always felt that way. So how did you find the fun in what you were doing? Because there's a lot of people who are like, I can't find the fun in this, and it's such a mistake.
So, I mean, to me, it's always the challenge of proving, again, you got to have a chip on your shoulder to prove to other people that what you're doing, you're going to be better at. So having
Yes.
that always on my shoulder that I'm going to be capable of, hey, I was a 22-year-old kid that I was going to be a CFO at 22. I had a chip on
Insane.
my shoulder to prove everybody wrong that said I couldn't do it, that I could do it. and having that chip on my shoulder to constantly prove to people what I could do helped motivate me. And that was fun. Proving people wrong to me was fun. Proving people wrong with the company at Jimmy John's that we were going to actually become the number two sandwich concept in America was
Yeah.
fun because we did it differently than the Subways or the Blimpies of the time or all that. We did it because we bet big on our franchisees and we went all in on the way we knew what the hell we were doing and we were going to do it better. And we all had this mindset that we were just going to kick ass with it and not worry about what anything else thought. And no one thought we'd do it. That was another chip on our shoulder that just made it fun. Hiring and being with the right group is part of what makes it fun. Having the right people on the bus. I know that gets a lot of negative connotation, but if you're in a team and there's wrong people on it that are constantly complaining about what they're doing, it brings you
Yes.
down at work. Getting rid of
Yeah.
the people like that and making sure the team is all bought in and focused, that makes it fun. And then when you're all firing on one common goal and everything is about that goal and the whole organization is beating to the same drum, you don't ever feel like you're working. I mean, I've got shift leads in restaurants that email me their numbers at night because they're proud they did X in sales because I set a goal for them,
Yes.
and that's the type of fun that we have. And they're thrilled that the CEO of this company texts them back and says, great job. You exceeded, it means a lot to them, but then they go and do it more. Those are the type of things that in an organization, how you make it fun. And
Yeah.
again, for you, constantly wanting to be the best. If
Yes.
you're not motivated to be the best and you're just going to collect a paycheck, it's never going to be fun. Nothing you
Yes.
do is going to be fun. I'm Gregg Majewski, and I've been a multi-unit operator for 26 years. I know how great it feels owning the right franchise brand, but choosing the right franchisor feels even better. At Craveworthy Brands, our hospitality-driven culture sets us apart because we're invested in your success at every single stage of your journey. We're operators alongside you, paving the way forward to give you a head start on greatness. Start your franchise journey at craveworthybrands.com.
Yeah, and one thing you brought up there that I think is really important that Jimmy probably said was number two sandwich shop in the US. Like you start to realize when you have big goals, other people can be inside of your big vision. So when you have these goals and these desires that you want to have huge visions so that so you can get other A players inside of your vision because otherwise it never works out. So as you're going through this and you go CFO, COO, CEO, how did you feel about that experience? Because I feel like most people would have been imposter syndrome. This isn't me. How is this going on? Because you probably have a bunch of friends who are just going their regular path, doing their thing. And you're like, dude, I'm running a big business here. Like,
I mean, it changed my life day one. Like I didn't get to live my 20s like a normal 20-year-old, and I look
yeah,
back at things and some of the regrets. I miss some of the things that most 20-year-olds get to do,
like,
and that's building the friendships and stuff like that with that group of people. I was dealing with people way older than me that were my peers, and I was always the oddball. And so I
yeah,
didn't get that friendship that you got. And looking back at it, you miss it.
yeah,
But because of that, I had a bigger chip on my shoulder that I was going to belong. And getting people like Dave Thomas and other great restaurant people to see that I was actually doing the work and mentoring me through the process was my validation that I was doing the right thing.
yeah,
And having those people come and support me when they did, when nobody else would talk to me at conferences, just
yeah,
proved that I was capable of being there. And they saw
yeah,
that my work ethic and what we were doing was right.
yeah,
I never didn't think I belonged. Like again, when I was in the company in the walls, I knew that was my spot. But when you walked out and went in the public for the first time and you started talking to others, they looked at you like, what? And you had to find a way to sort of fight through that and figure out that one, they were jealous.
yes,
Two,
of course.
they wished they could have done what you did at that age.
Yeah,
That someone believed in you enough to give you the keys to his castle back at the time that he did. I mean, Jimmy,
yeah,
looking back at it, was an idiot for allowing me to do that. I mean, he gambled and trusted me. And again, if I go back and do it today, I don't know if I would have given the keys to myself,
yeah,
but he saw something in me that he knew I was going to work my butt off and that
yeah,
we may not have known what was right or what was wrong, but we were going to together find a way forward. And we knew what the
yeah.
principles of the business was.
Absolutely. And then one of the other huge things I think is super important is the importance on the franchisees. So can you harp on that a little bit? When you guys at Jimmy John's were getting new franchisees, how did you allow them to be successful? Because I feel like when you're a franchisor, you just got to sell, 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 and it's such a challenging dynamic.
So what made Jimmy John's so special and what we do at Craveworthy today is that we don't believe in that sell, sell, sell. It's not about selling 5,000 restaurants. It's about having your franchisees make as much money as humanly possible and letting them win. So we give bigger
Yes.
territories. We allow them to grow with us. We don't oversell them or make them have huge build out schedules that they're never going to hit. And we bet on them. We pick a guy that is hungry like we are and that's going to work their butts off to get to that next level. And one of the
Yeah.
greatest joys that I see is now some of these Jimmy John's franchisees that now have 30, 40, 50 Jimmy John's, but now
Wow.
have 30, 40, 50 other brands 3 or 4 times. And they built these empires for themselves because we gave them an opportunity when most other franchise systems would have said no,
Yeah.
and it just, you need a starting point. You need someone to believe in you. And that's
Yeah.
what made Jimmy John so special is that we believed in the person that wanted to come in and we chose people that had the same chip on their shoulder as our employees did, something to
Yeah.
prove to everybody else that this was what they should be doing. And when you pick right and you surround yourself with people that are all bought into that same vision, and again, as a franchisee, you want to be bought into the franchisor's vision. When you got that message down and they were all marching to that same drum at Jimmy John's,
Yes.
free fast delivery, hospital clean, perfect bread, when everybody was focused on those things and going out and sampling, everybody was seeing significant growth. The brand wasn't that
Yes.
special. I mean, the thing
Yeah.
that set us apart was we were delivery,
Yeah.
before delivery was cool.
Yeah.
That was our point of differentiation to most people, but it was really the fact that we made a sandwich in 15 seconds,
I
and that you could be out the door.
I mean,
That
you bring this, yeah, you bring this up. It's funny that when I was so I'm in Tampa, and we would go out, and there's this street called South Howard, and everyone would always go to Jimmy John's as the hours would get later and later and later, because it would churn a sandwich like that. When you're waiting 2 minutes for a pizza, you already got your sandwich, and it was this
Yep.
interesting dynamic where it would just go. You're like, how'd that happen so fast?
I
I
mean,
don't get it.
but that was what we built the culture on. And having all that going at the same time, and then allowing your franchisees to open up store number two and not cannibalize their area, but open up store number two in an area that doesn't hurt store number one. Having that happen and allow them to have 2 home runs,
Yeah.
all of a sudden, then they're starting to make serious money that they then are like, oh, let me get 5, 6, 7, 8 of these things and open up in a much bigger territory. But it worked
And
because we bet on them.
And what is that jump like? Because I know when you're a single operator, you're running it and you're like, this is amazing, but I'm doing everything. How do you get people to that mindset of like, let's go multi-unit? Because there's so many people that are stuck. Like, you got to start building the team.
You have to give them the tools to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So we created a training procedure and a training mechanism that allowed them to learn how to operate one restaurant. And then when they were ready, we taught them how to operate 2 restaurants, 3, 4. And then once you got to 4, we put in an area manager over the 4 restaurants that allowed them to sort of bounce and manage all 4 at the same time. When we started doing those things, that's when we kicked it into another high gear. But we had to learn that you couldn't just operate one restaurant. You had to teach them how to operate 2, 3, and 4. And
Yeah.
everyone in this industry will tell you going from 1 to 2 is really, really hard. Going from 2 to 4 is as hard,
Yes.
because you can't be in the 2 restaurants. You can split your time 50-50. 4 restaurants, you cannot split your time 50-50. You're in each store, maybe 20, 15 to 20%, because then you got other responsibilities you got to do. How do you
Yeah.
manage them? How do you hold them accountable? What are your procedures that are going to allow you to make sure that the integrity of the brand is always working when you're not present? And
Yes.
so the checklists and the procedures that we bought into, part of the culture that we built, were so important that everybody followed these same systems and we created them. So if the system broke, you knew that, hey, we fixed the system, the procedure they were supposed to do, but 9 out of 10 times, it wasn't a system failure. It was a training mistake. You had to go and retrain your employee to do that procedure properly, and we continue to redefine the system to make it almost monkey proof to be able to operate a restaurant.
Absolutely. And then as going through that journey, what were some of the mistakes that you've had or you felt that you did? maybe not you, but maybe the team had, just because it's moving so fast. When you're going at hyper speed, nothing goes correctly at all times.
I mean, we made mistakes with advertising. That was a continual one because we didn't have the budget to go, and we always thought we had a bigger budget than what we did. So we would do big ads, even though we should have probably been doing small ads because we couldn't do it at that point. We also listened to people that were in the industry for a long, long time and took their advice instead of staying true to what we were.
Really?
So, and because they didn't get the DNA of what Jimmy John's was or made it special. So
Yeah.
every time we brought in someone outside to sort of look at us and do that, they gave us all these things that we should go and work and do. And after a little bit, we realized they didn't know our brand and we ended up throwing them out because they just didn't get the fact that this is so unique and so simple that we made a restaurant so easy to operate. We didn't think like those big restaurant chains. We basically
Yeah.
thought like a manufacturing company. It
Yeah.
was a system and a procedure for everything, and nothing besides that system or procedure mattered.
Yes, and I think that's so important because whenever anyone's building a business or building anything, you have to realize that it has to be replicatable. And there's so many people that are like, "No, I'm special." And it's like, "No, no, no. Like everybody can do this. Let's make it as simple as possible and make it easy for everyone to do." So, for you, Greg, why would you step away from this? Why would you step away from Jimmy's after you're still pretty young? Like, what were your thoughts on that?
So, I mean, I stepped away because the what was supposed to happen didn't, and Jimmy and I
Okay.
started to have a difference of views.
Okay.
And as you start getting to a certain point, the philosophy of not cannibalizing areas and not
Oh, because one.
overpopulating stores and all that became very important to me. And that wasn't always eye to eye. And as you see
Yes.
Inspire and the bigger groups that have now bought the brand, you've seen cannibalization left and right because they just care about top line and
And
top
what
line
and just
sales
for
and
the
stuff like that. And to
and
me,
just
that
for the
wasn't what we
audience,
built.
really quick, what is cannibalization if they don't know what that means?
So, cannibalization in the restaurant industry is basically you put too many of the same type of stores within the same demographics of your store. So, you put store one and store two, then start pulling from the same people that are in the middle. So, instead of having people drive that extra little bit to get to store one, you get more sales between the two stores, but the top line volume drops from store one because store two opens.
Got
And
you.
once that starts happening, your franchisee doesn't make as much money because you want that top line as high as possible. So the bottom line continues to grow. And that just continued to churn. And to me, that
But
was always the biggest no-no with any brand.
yeah,
You have to have your box has to make this money 15 to 20% for your franchisee all the time. And that's got to be the
yes.
goal. And if it's not, the franchisor has to do something continually to make sure that they're striving to get to that number.
Yeah, and that's one of the coolest things I think about you is that you constantly focus not on the overall business, like you focus on the overall business as a whole, but the major key is that the franchisees are happy and profitable and making money and able to succeed. How
I mean, that's the most important thing. They're trusting you with their investment and paying you a
yes.
percent of what they do every day. So if you're
Yeah.
not focused on that every day, then you shouldn't be taking their money. And I
Yeah.
mean, we have a brand that I bought recently that, sold to people that shouldn't have bought. Box economics wasn't right. And we've taken a year to sort of fix everything. And,
Oh
they're
wow.
just fighting with you that, hey, why am I doing this? I didn't have to do this. I was an owner, I didn't need an operator. We could just open it and make money. Well, that's not the way the restaurant works. So I sort of had to change the philosophies of this brand and get them in. We worked on getting food costs down. We worked on that. Now we got to work on getting top line up. But it's
Yeah.
taken a year to get to the point where now I say food cost is right, service is right. We have the model somewhat right. Now let's build top line, but you
Yes.
couldn't do that until you got the other things working. So
Yeah.
the franchise community's hurting during this time.
Yes.
And so when
Yes.
I bought it and I first took over the operations, I had a meeting with the franchise community and I point blank told them 50% of you should shut your doors. I know that's not what you want to hear, but
A hard
that's fact.
conversation. Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to save all of you. Nothing I can
Yeah.
do can fix bad locations or the fact that you're not operating your restaurant. You know, you have to be truthful to yourself. Do you want to go through this and continue to lose money, or do you want to go ahead and make a change and get out?
Oh, and
And,
because yeah, and because
and
the
because of
experience
what I
you
learned,
Yes.
firsthand, there's no reason to pump more money into something that's never going to get there. Yeah, 4 or 5 years from now, you may get to break even, but guess what? Your lease is up.
Yeah.
And so why do it? To
Yeah.
negotiate and out, get out, and see if you can be fixed.
Yeah. Of
And some of them just opened it and had high school kids opening up these restaurants. They lived in
course.
Utah and the restaurant was in Dallas and they had someone putting their key in that they never saw.
Yeah.
So if you're going to do that, you're not at that stage with a one store investment to be able to do that. You have no operating partner. You're not going to
Yeah.
win that way. So we had to
Yeah.
change that mentality of this brand. And now we're starting to see stores that have come on that have bought into once we were here that opened after we took over and explained it, opening with record sales every time because they're buying into
Wow.
our system, and
Yes.
got an operator and in the right locations and all this other stuff. But I can't fix the past. I can only fix
Yeah.
going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And what caused you to open up Craveworthy?
So Craveworthy was after consulting and doing everything else in this industry, and had a bunch of different PE groups try to get me to run their PE funds. I knew that I wanted to create a platform company for emerging restaurants. I wanted to take the brands that in today's world can't compete because the big boys are the big boys and someone's going to come
Yes.
in and buy you early and you're going to get taken out, or that you're going to have a great idea and they're going to copy it and trend. I wanted to give them an avenue to grow at the scale and the speed that they should in today's time without having to give up who they were and the DNA of the brands and allow the
Yes.
founders to still be a part of the company and run them without making the mistakes that we all made in our beginning stages. So
Yes.
picking the right franchisees, negotiating proper food costs, helping them with branding and all that. That was the idea behind Craveworthy and rocket fuel on emerging brands so they have that rocket ship go off and get to the scale that they should, because now the restaurant industry isn't, hey, let's take 20 years to get to the 3,000 units. It's,
Yeah.
hey, in 5 years you've got to be 200 open and 300 or 400 more sold,
Yes.
because the consumers meant, everything's gone. They get hot for a
Yes.
second, then they move on to the next one.
Yeah, which can be very challenging. So for you, it seems like at that point you were probably very like not needing the money. What caused you to want to do this? Because we know that money doesn't drive people, but what actually drives people? What drives you?
So I wanted to prove that we could do it again and again. I wanted to take the philosophies that we took at Jimmy John's and I wanted to prove that we could duplicate it over and over again. I
Yeah.
did this more to, again, chip on my shoulder that
Yes.
I could do it over and over again with what I learned in my past.
Yeah.
And we could do it at such a scale that then we could compete with the works and everything else to be the holding house of all these
Yeah.
incredible brands, but doing it from the operator perspective and not from a financial side. I didn't
Yes.
want to be dependent on the franchise results or having a PE guy come in and say, build, build, build. I wanted to build this as operators and do it the way
Yes.
operators should be and be true to the franchise community the entire time.
And
And when you get
what's the
away
major?
from that,
Yeah.
you sell to whoever in the franchise side. And
Yeah.
that's just never been what I've been about.
And what's the major difference between, like you're saying, an operator and then someone who goes the PE path? What's the major difference there?
You have to hit certain stores no matter what. And that means you're
Yes.
selling or doing things that you know really shouldn't be doing, but you got to hit your
Yes.
numbers to continue to get funding. And
Okay.
that's usually the death nail of most restaurant companies,
Yes.
and I got an argument at a conference that I spoke at that I called PE the devil, and I mean this in a way that, yes, there's a place for PE all the time, but the
Yeah.
PE's got to buy into the right way to do things. And in the restaurant
Yes.
industry, especially in the emerging side, they don't build emerging franchisors very well. They're great
Okay.
at building corporate restaurants. They're great at building corporate owned brands because money is needed for that. But they're not good at building franchisors because you got to open up so many stores so fast to get to any type of income for them that they're pushing things
Yeah.
that they shouldn't be pushing.
Yes.
Um, and so that's a big differential for me. So we took a blanket of multiple brands, knowing that, hey, if we sell 50 of one brand, 20 for another, let them grow at the speed that they're supposed to. Yeah, of course we'd like to sell 400 of them if
Yeah.
that's what the market dictates, but let them start to steamroll and see where they go and build
Yes.
them at the speed that they're supposed to build.
Yes. Because when you put that pressure way too much on one brand, like it might not work out. Like, you know what I mean? And
Yep.
sometimes stuff does, sometimes stuff doesn't. And for those who don't know, with Craveworthy, you opened in 2023. And how many brands do you have at this point? Because this is
So
very
we have,
quick.
I mean, so open with zero of everything in 2023. We now have 15 brands, 225 restaurants, about 225 million in system-wide sales.
Wow.
And about 100 corporate-owned locations out of those 225. Not bad for 2 years sort of ramp up.
No, not at all. Not at all. Like that is incredible. And how did you think about going about this? Because 225 restaurant, like that's a lot of restaurant, like that's a lot of moving pieces and going from zero to that. Obviously, you've had the experience with what you've done, but to build the team that
But you're
quickly
not
to
ever
bring in
ready
the
for that.
no, you weren't.
And no, I mean, mistakes were made. You make hires because you think you need to go and make these hires, and sometimes they fit the culture, sometimes they don't. You got to build the team so fast. And what I made mistakes here is that I brought in people that I thought would fit my culture, that I had to pivot and bring in people that do fit my culture. It
Got
was
you.
it was more important again to hire the right person to sit on the bus than sometimes to hire the body that everybody thinks is this great individual. We had to pick and choose what we do. And the challenges are real just whenever you grow that fast. When
Yes.
we announced Craveworthy in 2023, I announced that I acquired 3 restaurants brands. I thought I'd have one more deal that year, and never in my wildest dreams would have thought we would have gotten to the point we did, the way we did. But with the lightning in a bottle moment was sort of real. And we
Yes.
continue to get new deals and new offers and new opportunities that we never thought we were going to be able to get. And we've taken some gambles. I bought a company for $1. It was a $43 million asset that the PE group said enough. There's no more funding for it. And the 29th hour, I came in and offered them $1. I'd take all the liabilities and everything off their plate, and we go to see if we could fix it. We've done stuff like that because it was the right time, right moment, and we knew we had the infrastructure to sort of drive down the costs to do that. And that brand, we've added almost 12.5 points to the bottom line at the restaurant
Wow.
level, but we're still getting through all of the crap that this company had before we can get our head above water. But it was
Yeah.
a $1 gamble,
Yeah.
and for a $43 million asset that this other group put money into, it was a great deal. If we're able to fix it, who wouldn't want that return? And if we're not, it's okay. We shut the doors and we move on, and we have nothing that hurts because we bought the stock of that company, and so we
So,
bankrupt it like they were going to. But it was a
so
great risk.
yeah, of course. And I think that's such an important fact to bring up that when you can do a very low risk and see a very high return on the backside, it's like, why not give it a try? So for me, what I find very interesting is that you're going through all these different restaurants. Where did you get all this deal making experience? Because it's a fascinating area and it's a little bit different than operating a restaurant. So it's amazing to me watching all the different pieces together.
I mean, I don't know. It just sort of came natural. And I wish, and as I've done more and more, I've learned
Yeah.
how to, do more and more. And one of the things that Jimmy told me back in the day, if you don't ask for it, you don't get it.
Yes.
So I've made crazy terms and people have said yes. Like the dollar. No one should have taken $1 for that company, but we got that for $1. I threw out $1. And I just sort of learned from those experiences that it's that if you don't ask, you don't get. And though
Yes.
it's okay to be told no, then you figure out where you need to go. And if that's not right for you, walk away. So there's another group that I'd love to acquire right now that we're negotiating, and they're stuck on this huge number for their establishment. It doesn't make sense to me. And as
Yeah.
much as I think I want this brand and I think the brand's going to do exceptional, it's over my price range of what I want to invest in an individual 4-store group.
Yes.
So sometimes you got to know also it's okay not to get that one,
Yeah.
and when too many times when you're fighting for that one deal, you think you're stuck. You have to go with it. If I get it, I get it. If I don't, I don't. The price has got to be
And
right for what I want to pay.
I think there's two major points. There's one that if you don't ask, you don't get. And what I mean by that is like you're already at a no. Like if you don't offer anything, it's a no. So like
Right.
as long as you offer something, you might get something. And then the abundance of knowing there's so many deals out there, and if it's not the right deal at this time, that's okay. Because there's such an attachment and a fear of rejection for a lot of people that they go, "No, I can't offer that. That's embarrassing." And it's like you have to offer something or it's not gonna the conversation's not gonna get started.
And it's the same as when you negotiate a contract of any need.
Yes.
You know, they're going to give you a price. That price they're giving you is the price that wins for them. That's their best price they're going to get. They're going to make the most money off of. It's the price that they come with you on.
Yes.
So everyone goes back. It's like negotiating in a car. You think there's so much room to be had, and usually there's a ton of room to be had.
But
We've also gotten to the point now that I have this reputation that when I make an offer, it is my best offer.
okay.
I go in and I don't negotiate. I go in because I've done this so long. This is the price I want. Either hit it or don't. If you
Yeah.
don't, no big deal. And we did this with Coke and Pepsi on our contract. I
Yeah.
went in, I wanted X amount and told them both it. They both sort of looked at me like, okay, whatever. And I'm like, great. I won't sign a contract with either. I'll be a free agent for a year. You'll regret it. Coke
Yeah.
comes back and gave me exactly what I asked for, because
Yeah.
they didn't want to risk that I'd do more. I'd accomplish what we said we were going to accomplish and then go to Pepsi and have let me over there. They took a gamble because
Yeah.
they knew that's what I wanted and how to do it. If you don't ask, it doesn't happen. And if you
Yeah.
don't push them for what's right for you, it doesn't happen. And that goes for your career too. It's no different. If you don't ask for a raise or ask for your number, and accept whatever, you're going to get whatever they're going to offer. They're not going to give you the highest number that's budgeted in a year. They're going to give
Yeah.
you what they can to help them be more profitable.
Yes.
So it's the same thing, know what your worth is, know what you're capable of, and ask. If you don't ask, you're not going to get it. Yeah, maybe it costs you a job, or you don't get the raise. But then if that's what you truly feel your worth is, find that spot where your worth is supposed to be and then ask for it and make sure you get it.
Yeah. And I think that's so important because you have to realize, especially in America, there's so many opportunities out there. And if you don't like, it's funny, we'll go to places and like we went to this like a light show yesterday and the girl was like, "Yeah, I have a s'more and it's $3." But I'm like, "If we get two s'mores, can we get it for 5?" And she's like, "No. No, like the owner's gonna be upset at me. We don't allow that." And I'm like, my my wife immediately goes, "Here's the card, we'll pay for that, no worries." And I'm like, you have to let people have that conversation because you're just practicing the skill. And I'm just giving this so that the audience can see negotiations everywhere. It's little things with people all the time. And the more you practice, this is like a muscle. The more you practice, the more you can do because you get past
And
that. How do you feel about rejection? And how do you overcome that? Because a lot of people are like, I can't handle rejection. It's one of the biggest fears.
in all honesty, I could care less. It adds another chip on my shoulder, so if a brand says no or turns me down or something like that, and I want that segment, I'll go find something else. I'm going to put them out of business. That's sort of the mentality that I have, and it's that killer instinct that you hear about athletes and everything else is that when someone tells me no, I'm going to make sure that's the biggest regret they have ever had,
Yes.
in some way, shape, or form. I may not always do it, but man, it just gives me that extra little bit of motivation on my shoulder to go ahead and stick it to somebody. But you got to have what drives you. And you got
Yeah.
to, hey, you're going to be told no.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But use that to make yourself better. Use that as a driver. Use that as a reason to get up and go harder.
Yeah.
And everyone talks about Jordan and getting cut from his high school team and all that other stuff. But, the guy used that motivation to become the best basketball player ever. And depending
Yes.
on who you talk to. And, that is a crucial component because he continued to just nag that on him continually
Yes.
because he wanted to prove everybody wrong.
Yes.
That is, you've got to find a driver to make yourself better,
Yes.
and you can't, in today's age, especially the younger generations in the workforce, think everything's got to be cuddles and, cotton candy and candy canes and, oh, you got to treat me with this and that. And the fact is that that's not a real world environment. Getting a
Yeah.
participation trophy at work doesn't happen, or in
Yeah.
life doesn't happen. If you're going to go out there and prove yourself, it's not about a participation trophy. It's not always about winning either, but it
Yeah.
is also about doing the best and knowing that you have to exceed expectations day in and day out.
Yeah.
And I tell my kids on a regular basis that you can't half-ass trying just because that gets you by, doesn't actually make you better. If you're not
Yeah.
going to put the work in and day out every day to make yourself better, then why are you doing it? And that goes for,
Yeah.
their sports. They would go in and I'm like, how was practice? It was all right. I go, it didn't look like you were really trying today. I didn't want to be here. I'm like, then why are we doing this?
Yeah.
And have that conversation because they have to want to put in the time to get better. If you want to
Yes.
be
And I
the
think,
best negotiator, practice it. If you want to start a company, you got to go and do it. You may fail, but if you don't do it, you're never going to know if you're capable of doing it. And once you
yes.
start doing it, magically something kicks into most people that it's a thrill that they don't want to ever stop,
Yes.
and it's not an Instagram type world, even though people say it is, and all these millionaires are being made and all that. There's as many phonies out there, and this young
Yes.
generation is so stuck on seeing, oh, I can look, this guy has a plane, for posting all the time. Uh-huh. Sure they do. Look a little
Did you
closer. There's a tarp over the engine that they just got off. Doesn't happen, you
Did you
know?
see I don't know if you saw this, but one of the biggest businesses out of New York right now is someone bought like the plane structure. They didn't even buy a plane. They literally bought a little canvas area, like a back area, and then they made it a plane and they just made it like and then they're taking their photo shoots there and it's booked out all the time because it's no one's like a lot of this stuff isn't really happening. So it's that realization of like putting in the actual work. And one of the biggest realizations that I've had this year is that if I have to work hard for something and I don't get the result, but I prove to myself that I can work hard, it's a bigger skill set that I got than actually accomplishing said goal because you push yourself through. You know what I mean? There's so many times where we don't get what we want. We don't get the answers and we have to keep pushing through.
I mean, every day you don't succeed in what you want to accomplish, and that goes for anyone. I mean, Elon Musk, he bought Twitter, thought it was going to be, he was going to make money right away. It's got what, 68 million or 680 million valuation today. He bought it for 6.8 billion. I mean, the guy took a butt kicking. He for sure thought he was going to make money on that deal. As much as he
Yeah.
wants to go and say, oh, it was about freedom of the speech, baloney. He thought he was going to make money on it.
Yeah.
We fail, and you don't always get the results you want. But man, the guy tried. The guy changed it the way he said he was going to. And, it's a better company maybe today than it was before, but it's not seeing the valuation yet. I mean, the guy was almost bankrupt at Tesla, I
Yeah.
mean, so let's
And
think about that. He was done, no more money. He was out. And he got that one deal, one contract that gave him enough to get by. And now he's the wealthiest human being in the world. And he didn't give up. He didn't go run in a corner and how am I going to get through it? He just knew he was going to do it. There's
yeah.
reasons why these sick individuals, and again, having that in your head makes you a little sick. I don't
Yeah.
disagree with that. But having that in you that you're not going to give up and not going to fail you're going to get by. And even
Yes.
if that business fails or that task fails, you're going to be better off for it because you tried to do it.
Yes, I completely agree. And there was even, if you really think about it, like with Elon, he was part of the PayPal mafia, ended up, he had enough money to do nothing. Like he could have just sat there and done nothing. And he chose because he wanted to be a builder and he wanted to do more. And that's the way his mindset was, where it's like, no, we have to do. And he's very high on the risk tolerance place compared to a lot of others. So you have to know yourself. But it's this knowing and learning process of learning yourself through these different experiences and these different opportunities to become the best version of whoever you want to be and whatever you want to be. So what motivates you today?
I mean, truly, we set a goal and that's the motivation. So when we started
Yes.
Craveworthy, I wanted to be $1 billion company in 5 years.
Yes.
No way is that a doable number. If we
Yes.
achieve that, God, it'd be amazing.
Yeah.
But I set such a lofty goal that we're able to march towards. And I
Yes.
wake up every day trying to figure out a way to get us closer and closer to that goal. And
Yes.
so I said something that most people laugh at me for saying that's my goal or even spilling it out.
Yes.
And, they're probably right. But they also told me I wouldn't be 100 million after 2 years and I'm at 225 million. You know, that's pretty damn good.
Yeah.
and so we've doubled each year as we've been doing it. And again, if we double next year, we'll have 4. If we double after that, I'm at 8. I'm really, really close. Now, is that doable? Who the hell knows? But I believe that's what we're marching towards. And we're constantly trying to figure out a way to get there.
Yes.
But I mean,
And
the
I think,
motivation that really gets me up every day is that when I left Jimmy John's, the amount of millionaires that we created and the amount of people that I was able to help get their next job and change their lives, that's really what motivates me every day. The fact that I'm seeing this team that other people may not have hired or had been washed out or, didn't got bypassed for certain promotions at their companies they were come into my company and buy into what we're doing and now seeing them excel. And the fact that they bet on me that I'm going to change their lives and that together we're going to change their lives and set a different course. That's what motivates me every day. And there's a couple on here that never had an opportunity or would never get their chance to be in the positions that they're on. And the fact that they went all in and believe on what we're doing, it is all the motivation I need because I'm going to make sure that their lives are changed forever.
yeah, that's absolutely amazing because you start to realize that it's not just about you, but it's about the people you impact. And when you can find a role and find a job and find a business where you're really creating change in other people's lives and them seeing for the first time that they can go on that family vacation because they never had the resources to, or they are able to send their kids to that private school. There's no better feeling than that. And I think that's
No, I
kind of,
mean, and it's making them feel like, and it again, the youth of today will think this is cliche, but making it a family and making it
yes,
where everybody cares about themselves. And if you're not in the office and not working with the individual, you can never have that because you only see them
yes,
across the screen. And so
yes,
having this sort of environment where you truly are and you truly care about each other and you check in and you ask them how they're doing and you know about their family and the issues that they're having. And you know that certain people are making sacrifices that, they're away from home and they're missing, bedtimes and, that for their girls when they're gone, giving them experiences that allows them to have that time so they know that their kids are that mom or dad is being taken care of and that hey you now get to go to Disney World with your family because it's a perk that you have and
yes,
doing those type of things as you're always gone. Those are the type of things that make a company different and make people want to work for you,
yes,
and giving more than what you should. And then I've always been a big believer in way overpaying.
yeah,
If you're going to do something that's going to be so hard and so changing, you can't have someone worried about where they're going to get their paycheck. So,
yes.
because you got to all be focused on the
The
reality.
mission.
So I've always overpaid and overpaid for the positions that are the people that I depend on because I don't need them to ever worry. I don't need them leaving for, $10,000, so way overpay them so they're all bought in and we can all be focused on the same thing. And in the end,
Yes,
just like my franchisees win today, my staff will win today, I'll win at the end. And that's okay,
yes,
and that's how
yes.
we go ahead and we march.
Yes, I love that because I think it's so important because when people are worried about the money, then they can't be fully present in their role. And when they have people that help them, hey, now you can hire a cleaner, and hey, now you can hire the dry cleaner. Hey, we can get the meal preps coming in. So you're not worrying about all these extra hours and you're able to put that into the work, then you're able to build something truly incredible, which I think is amazing. So for you, Greg, what is the thing that you are looking to do in the net in 2025 as we're kind of winding down the year? What's the big thing for you,
I mean, the
or that
biggest thing is
Craveworthy's focused on?
it I mean, Craveworthy is going to continue to focus on changing the restaurant space. We've done something so different and so unique in how we bundle this. We want to truly change the way the restaurants industry works. And that's
Yes,
thinking more, not just one group, but other ways that you can earn revenue off of. Can I now
yes,
invest in restaurant tech? Can I now own my real estate for the restaurants that I'm open? Can I
yes,
now put bundles of franchise groups together and operate them for them? But we open up 20 or 30 stores as a collective group to guarantee that they operate properly and make them more of an investment strategy. How can I change the industry by allowing people into my company and touch other aspects? So we're going to focus on CPG, restaurant tech, real estate, and then of course building our franchise brand. Those are the 4 pillars of what we're building. So in the next year, you'll see restaurant tech and CPG come online, and real estate, we're hoping to raise a fund for north of $100 million to open up real estate in 2025.
That's incredible, because you start to realize that as you get bigger and bigger, there's more collective power and buying power so that you guys can do a lot of things more efficiently than other people, which is the real thing of what you're doing with Craveworthy. Because I think about it, the amount of restaurant owners I know who are 1, 2, 3 shop people, and they're like, this is my impact, but you're doing this on a real big level very, very quickly, which I think is absolutely incredible. So as we're winding down, where can people learn more about you? Where can they learn more about Craveworthy? Where can people find you?
You can go to craveworthybrands.com and find everything, but you can also follow me on LinkedIn, Gregg Majewski, or follow my podcast, Room for Seconds, where we do this every week with different guests in the industry, outside of the industry, sports stars. We're going to have a couple of TV personalities come on in the next year. But again, we're going to talk about leadership and how there's always room for more. Hey viewers, thanks again for supporting Room for Seconds. If you found this episode inspiring, interesting, or any bit informative, please hit that little subscribe button down at the bottom so you never miss an episode. In my 26 years in this amazing industry, I've been blessed with incredible mentorship. This show is my way of giving back. Follow me on LinkedIn, search Gregg Majewski, on Twitter @Gregg_Majewski. If you still have room for more, visit our website at media.craveworthybrands.com. You'll find more videos, shows, notes, blogs, resources, and an easy way to get in touch with the Craveworthy Brands team. I'm your host, Gregg Majewski. Thanks again for tuning in to Room for Seconds.